On behalf of Contact North, I'm thrilled to welcome you to today's webinar, Why Universal AI Rules Don't Work, How to Build Responsive AI Policies with Your Students. I'm Sarah Gover, I'm the Director of teachonline.ca and the online learning news at Contact North, and I'll be your host. I'd just like to start off with our provincial land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that Contact North's work and the work of our community partners takes place on traditional Indigenous territories across the province. We are grateful to be able to live and work on these lands. We express our gratitude to the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have cared for these territories since time immemorial, and who continue to strengthen communities across Ontario. So just a few quick notes before we start. So we're using Zoom webinar today. That means participants' microphones and cameras will remain unavailable. The chat is open, but do remember to select everyone the drop-down menu when posting. Otherwise, it'll just be Dr. Cao and myself that'll be able to see them. We'll have time for questions at the end of the session. You can also upvote any questions that resonate with you by clicking the thumbs up icon, and that is found at the bottom of the toolbar there, where you see the little Q&A icon. Live captioning is available. Just simply click on the closed caption icon at the bottom of your screen, and then after the webinar, I will post the recording and presentation slides to teachonline.ca, and I'll share the link in the chat momentarily. You'll also receive a link via email from Zoom within 24 hours with the recording link. All right, that's it from me. On to our main event. I'd like to welcome Dr. Lydia Cao, Assistant Professor of Digital Technologies and Education at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education at the University of Toronto. Welcome, Dr. Cao, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everyone. This is Lydia. Last time I ran a Contact North seminar, I was a postdoctoral fellow at Harvard Graduate School of Education. So I'm really glad things are coming full circle, and I'm coming back and joining you from University of Toronto this time. And today I'm very excited to share with you why universal AI rules don't work and how to build responsible AI policies with your students. So here is our agenda. So I'm going to start by clarifying a definition on AI, and I'm going to go over the current state of student AI use. And then I'm going to move on to what is responsible AI policy, last but not least, and how to construct such policy with your students. So clarifying definition, the term AI has been going around and it started kind of losing meaning. Everything right now is kind of labeled as AI. So I want to clarify that today, my talk is going to be focusing on generative AI, which is what really captured our attention since 2023. So first of all, I want to highlight that AI was already everywhere before large language model or generative AI or the application of ChatGPT. So these are some examples of AI that we might not recognize as AI, such as facial recognition, personalized newsfeed on social media, custom suggestions and advertisement, route planning, search engines, and apps like Uber that use AI to calculate how much it's going to cost and to match you with a driver. So all of these kind of applications we're familiar with are powered by AI, but these are not generative AI, and they are kind of working in the background. So that's why we don't really think of them as AI. And today, what we are talking about is generative AI. As the name suggests, it generates things. It generates new content such as text, images, code, audio, video, you name it. I think what is something kind of special about generative AI is its natural language interface. Never before we were able to so seamlessly have a conversation with an AI agent or AI chatbot in such a natural way. Because previous AI, these rule-based AI, symbolic AI, were quite narrow and task-specific. AI, generative AI, is like a Swiss knife. It's a generalist. It has diverse capabilities. So it can write, it can code, it can analyze, it can translate, summarize, create images, etc. Because it's such a generalist, it's very impressive to see its performance. And furthermore, our brain is wired to interpret anything that use language as intelligent. I think that's one of the reasons why generative AI is so captivating for us. But I also like to highlight that generative AI that we see today, these are not AGI, these are not general intelligence. So these are large language models mostly that's function in a way that's trying to predict its next token. So today, I'm going to be talking about generative AI. So next, I'm going to kind of map out the current landscape of student AI use. I think many of you might already have an inclination that students are using AI for schoolwork in their private life, but I'd like to back that up with a couple of survey results. The first one come from the Digital Education Council. This is a survey done in 2024 within an international context across 16 countries in higher education. So they solicited about 3,839 responses. And in this survey, it shows that 86% of students who responded claim to use AI in their studies. So 86%. And next, it's about the frequency of usage. Just the students who use AI quite frequently. 54% of them claim to at least use AI on a weekly basis. So moving on to Canadian higher education context a little bit. So this survey is done by KPMG. This survey is done in 2025. 684 students above age of 18 responded. And this survey shows that 73% of Canadian students are now using AI for their schoolwork. Not just in higher education, we also see more and more prevalent use of AI in secondary schools. So this one is from a survey done by University of Oxford Press. They surveyed 2,000 students aged between 13 to 18 across the UK this year. The survey shows that 8 in 10 young people use AI tools in their schoolwork. Moving on to the US context, again, in secondary schools, this survey is done by RAND survey panels. They show that in 2025, 54% of students indicate that they used AI for school. So far, we know that students are already using AI with or without guidance. The second kind of take-home message I want to convey is that students often use AI in the shadow, and they are worried. By shadow, I mean they're using in a way that's and they do not disclose their use to their peers or to their teachers, and they are doing that kind of in a secretive manner, and then they feel worried about that. So this is one study that is done in US higher education context with 733 undergrads in a large state university. And the students are from an introductory psychology class. What they found was that 41% of students had used AI in ways explicitly banned. So students were filling out the survey, and they were saying that they use AI in a way that they're not supposed to be using. And many students report ambiguous use cases. Ambiguous means that students are actually not sure whether their use is appropriate or inappropriate, or there is no clear guidelines, so they're using the way that they see best fits. Another thing we see that students start to get worried about being at a disadvantage if they don't use AI while their peers do. Actually, many students think their peers are using AI, and they worry if they don't start using AI, they will be put at a disadvantage. And so we see a lot of, with the AI use, we see a lot of kind of rupture of trust between educator and students. A lot of educators feel they have to be on guard to catch students' use of AI. And this survey shows that there's also kind of rupture of trust among students, because students are thinking that peers are using AI And if they don't do that, they will be disadvantaged. And we see that similarly in secondary school context. For example, this survey in the UK, that 48% of young people are concerned that pupils in their year are secretly using AI to do their schoolwork. And almost as many, 47% of students are concerned their teacher are not able to spot this when it happens. While students are secretly using AI, they also feel worried. 57% of the students, this is from the Canadian survey, 57 of the Canadian students saying that they feel like they're cheating when they're using AI. And 54% of them said that they feel worried about being caught. At the same time, we see the secretive use of AI. And at the same time, we see students are worried about false accusations when they don't use AI. Half of the students say that they are worried they will be falsely accused of using AI to cheat. So this is from the American survey on secondary students, the RAND survey panel. So what we see so far is quite messy, that students are using AI already, often happen in the shadow. At the same time, they feel worried, not just worried about being caught or feel like cheating, but they also worry about their peers who are using AI, which will put them into a disadvantage. The third take-home message is students want to be guided and to be heard. So this is from the international survey that I mentioned earlier, that 72% of the students agree that universities should provide training for students on the effective use of AI tools. And 72% of students also agree that universities should offer more courses on AI literacy. And moving to the Canadian side, 77% of them want their educational institutions to offer courses on how to use AI. So students are using that in the shadow, but they do want to be guided appropriately and have support. And at the same time, they want to be heard when it comes to decision making. So this is from the international survey. 71% of students demand involvement in AI decision making, but only 34% of the students feel that the university is actively seeking feedback from them. So students are feeling excluded from the decision making process. So these are the kind of key message of serving the current student AI use landscape. Students are already using AI, they use AI in the shadow, and they feel worried. They want to be guided and they want to be heard. So this leads to part 3 of my talk about responsive AI policy. How can we co-construct such policy with students to have their voices heard and included? First of all, I would like to define what is responsive AI policy. So responsive AI policy is co-constructed by learners, educators, and administrators. It's not imposed by a decision-making group onto students. The advantage of that is students have more ownership and buy-in of such policy that was created. So responsive AI policy also adapt to specific learning contexts and learners' developmental stages, evolve alongside AI advancement, and it also creates space for these stakeholders to express their values, navigate ethical considerations together, and build consensus. Why do we need responsive AI policy? Why can't we just have a universal one-size-fits-all rule? When I run teacher professional development, I often got asked, like, should I let my student use AI to help their essay writing, to debug their code, practice language, or create graphic design? The thing is, the answer isn't simple. It really depends on what students are trying to learn here. What is appropriate AI use in one case might be completely counterproductive in another. This is why one-size-fits-all policy don't really capture these nuances across learning contexts and also human AI interactions. So two students could be interacting with the same AI. One could be interacting in a very productive manner. Maybe the other one be less productive and actually hurt their learning. So this is why we need responsive AI policy. So this is what I think AI policies should be responsive to. The first one is learning context. So what the subject, the learning objective. The second one is time. That AI policy need to be keep up with the rapid evolvement of AI development. The third one is developmental stage. We need to ensure age-appropriate AI use and really protect these key developmental stages, especially for our young learners. But last but not least, AI policies need to be responsive to ethics and values. We have to recognize people have different value system. What is appropriate for one person, the other person might feel they might outright reject that. So we have to kind of navigate these really contextual and nuanced space. Right now, I'm going to give you an example of each of these responsiveness dimension. The first one is responsive to learning context. So you see two AI generated images here, but these actually from two different learning contexts and from the educator I've been speaking with. So the first one is a teacher, a French teacher asked their student to use AI to generate a postcard illustration for their French assignment. The key learning objective there is for students to be able to use past tense in French and compose a message correctly. So students were not allowed to use AI to correct their message, but they can use AI to generate the postcard illustration because the teacher said that the image generation here is not the key learning objective. On the other hand, students, again, using AI to generate an image, this time is in an art class where students are learning still life composition. And they are supposed to learn these key principles such as negative space, leading line, visual balance, etc. In this case, if they use AI to generate an image and then they can emulate later, it completely defeats the learning objective. Even in both cases, AI is being used to generate image. One case is more appropriate than the other. So these AI policies we develop have to be adaptive and responsive to different learning contexts and different learning objectives. The second one is responsive to time. So you see here, the image here is I ask AI to kind of list my research publications and I look at them apart from one source is not super correct. The titles are all correct. But I don't know if you remember when generative AI first came out. In 2023, one of the easiest way to spot AI usage inappropriately is identifying these fabricated, hallucinated citations. But right now, AI has evolved rapidly. It's being now connected to the internet, using RAG to improve the accuracy and reliability of its results. So a lot of times, AI don't really hallucinate in terms of identifying research or research sources. So what was inappropriate, like AI shouldn't be used to identify research sources at all 2 years ago, now the landscape has changed. Maybe in some specific situations and circumstances, students can be allowed to use AI to help them identify some sources. The third dimension is being responsive to developmental stage. So I want to have a shout out to everyone.ai. They do a lot of important work at the intersection of child development as well as AI use. And they cautioned us that exposure to AI during key developmental stages could limit children's opportunity to acquire and develop fundamental skills such as language, attention, executive functioning, emotional regulation, etc. One of the example here is these children AI companions that can be used to play with children or calm them when they are feeling very emotional. But the thing is, we don't know in any form of longitudinal study, because this is so new, how this is going to affect children developmentally over time. But just just a quick judgment or quick reaction from me, I'm worried that children will be deprived of opportunity to regulate, for example, their own emotions if they're constantly being calmed and comforted by an AI companion. So how we're going to use AI really need to be responsible to developmental stage. What's appropriate for an adult learner might be completely inappropriate for a younger child. Last but not least is AI policies need to be responsive to ethics and values. And I feel we don't talk about this enough when we construct these policies. I want to give a quick example here. Is it okay to Ghiblify an image? If you don't know what Ghiblify is, it basically means to create an AI image emulating Studio Ghibli's artistic style, as you see here. So Studio Ghibli is very widely known for its painstakingly crafted and deeply personal artwork. And to some people, generating a Ghiblified image was fun to transform their treasured family vacation into a really beautiful artistic work. But to a lot of other people, it is an outright violation towards an artist, and especially a living artist's work. And people find it extremely disrespectful and violating intellectual rights and properties. So, but these images are being generated, and there is not really clear legal boundaries and to what extent we can use AI to generate these artistic work. So there's a lot of gray area in this, and we really, as mindful users and ultimately creator, we need to kind of navigate this ambiguity together as a collective. So what is really important when we build responsive AI policy is we need open dialogue. We need to hear different perspectives, different value system, what is okay, what is not okay, and continue to reflect on these rules we are developing together, and to ultimately trying to build some kind of guardrail and consensus among ourselves. So this leads to the last part of my talk today, is about how to co-construct responsive AI policy with students. So when I run professional development programs, I tell teachers a lot of times, yeah, you need to have these open dialogues. You need to include student perspectives. But having been a teacher myself, I know how hard it is can be to facilitate such conversation, especially there's so much uncertainty and ambiguity around it. So I've been thinking about how can I help teachers, including myself, to facilitate such dialogue. So this leads me to create a game that I call Responsive AI Policy Builder. So as you see, this is an image from my class. The students are using these AI Policy Builder cards to build a responsive AI policy for a particular assignment. So I'm going to quickly explain how this game works. So this game roughly take about 20 to 30 minutes. And I usually have students working groups between 3 to 5, depending on your class size. Within the Responsive AI Policy Builder, there are 4 types of cards. The first type is a learning objective cards, where students have to reflect on the learning objective of an assignment, of an activity. Usually when we teach, we might be very clear of the learning objectives and the learning goals, but we don't always necessarily communicate these with our learners. A lot of times learners feel they're operating in the dark. They don't really understand why they're doing these assignments. When they don't understand why they're doing something, they don't find meaning or purpose, that leads to what we don't want, is plagiarism and cheating. So the first type of card lead learners to reflect on why they are doing this activity or why they are doing this assignment or assessment. The second type of cards is AI impact cards, where students have to evaluate the impact of AI on a particular learning objective. The third card is an AI role card, where students have to assign or create appropriate AI roles that will support these learning objectives. Last but not least, they have to decide when to use AI. because the timing matters. The research shows us when you use AI can really affect your learning. So students have to decide when to use it. So right now I'm gonna show you all of the cards to give you an idea of what's in this deck. So the first one, mapping learning objectives. As I said, learners are encouraged to look at an assignment activity, really reflect, what am I trying to learn here? Why does my teacher assign this activity or assessment to us? And this is also a really great opportunity for you to understand, see, are your learners understanding these objectives? And it's a chance to have an open dialogue with students about why you're assigning this. If you see there are alignment or discrepancy in what they think the learning objectives are and what you think the learning objectives are. There are also empty cards in the deck for you and for students to create new learning objective that's not included in the original deck, these 12 different learning objectives. So some of the learning objectives are included, including think, create, collaborate, cultural perspectives, research, design, develop mastery, ethics and values, foster agency, solve problems, make an impact, reflect and grow. I'm trying to make these different learning objectives conceptually distinct, but they're always going to be a little bit overlapping here and there. And I think it's a really great idea for you as an educator or as for a student to create their own learning objectives as well. The second step is assess AI's impact. So there are 3 types of cards. The AI helps, that makes learning better, or the effect is mixed, meaning sometimes AI can help and sometimes it interferes with learning. The last type is AI interferes. So it gets into the way of learning. In this case, AI shouldn't be used for this assignment or activity. So when students assigning these AI impact cards, they have to critically reflect the relationship between AI use and the learning objective, whether they have to make their own judgment about AI usage. And I think this is really important. Rather than having students blindly following rules that's imposed on them, they are exercising their critical judgment of appropriate and inappropriate AI use. The third step is to determine AI's roles. So if AI can help in some cases, AI should be assigned a specific role that best support that learning objective. Again, here I mapped out 8 different roles, and there are blank cards for students and educators to create new roles. And this list is by no means exhaustive. Actually, as I was watching students and educators playing this game, there are many, many roles that came up that I need to build new cards into this section of the deck. The last step is this one's actually a new addition to the original AI policy builder. When we first started, we started with the 3 types of cards. And as we watch people play, we decided that need to be an extra step that's above AI timing. So whether humans should engage with tasks first and then use AI to get feedback, suggestion, or proofreading, or AI can do it the task first. So let AI generate an initial output, and then the human can go verify, select, or build upon AI generated output. Or there should be an ongoing collaboration, meaning you go back and forth. AI can be used flexibly at any stage with continuous and back and forth conversation and iteration. And when AI should be used, again, it really depends on the learning objective and as well as the context. So here, learner, again, have to exercise their critical judgment muscle to make that decision and what's best for them. And one thing I hear a lot is, it's almost kind of seen as a universal accepted way of using AI is to use AI to brainstorm. But the thing is, sometimes it's really important for a human to stare at a blank canvas or engage in quick design sprints to really flesh their ideas out. So it might not be appropriate to always use AI to brainstorm to generate initial sets of ideas. So again, the learners, educator have to make these critical decisions themselves. What is a good use of AI here? So what is the overall purpose of the game? So we want student educator to kind of dive deeper into the whys behind learning. Once the learners know the why, there is a better chance that they have enhanced intrinsic motivation, meaning that they will want to do this work being motivated by intrinsically rather than, oh, I have to submit this because my teacher told me to. Once they build this policy themselves, we hope there will be an increased buy-in of this AI policy. So rather than seeing this policy as something that try to catch them and make them fearful, they take ownership of such policy because they understand why AI is helping or not helping them in a given case. So when students finish playing the game itself serves as a visual guide for responsive AI use. So students were encouraged to take a photo of how they place different cards to use as a visual guide for their assignment or activity. Last but not least, doing this exercise is a development of AI literacy itself. It's kind of killing two birds with one stone. While they're developing an AI policy that can use in their class, they are also developing their critical judgment and become more of a mindful user and ultimately creator of AI. So what do we have done so far with this responsive AI policy builder game? We have tried them with university instructors, master students, high school students, and this afternoon, we're going to try with teacher candidates as well. What we noticed that there is a glaring gap in teacher education, in teacher professional development to support teachers to develop AI literacy and to facilitate the same discussion in their own classroom. So we want this card to be a scaffold and structured way for teacher to feel comfortable to take that risk and start this conversation in their class. So this is what we've learned so far from observing educator and student playing this game. Again, I have to say this is not any form of rigorous research. These are anecdotal and observation. Actually, we start building this game first in late August, and we are prototyping, iterating really fast because there's such huge gap and huge demand, and we just can't wait to go that long route of firstly writing a grant, waiting for a year, and slowly build this out. So we are going through really rapid development right now to make this game works for everybody. So as I said, this game, we found that it become a very structured yet open-ended way for educator and learners to think about AI in a more critical way. And it helps them to shift away from the binary thinking of like AI or no AI to be more, to have a more contextual and nuanced approach when they think about AI. We also noticed that learners and educator become more intentional in their learning objective, and learning objective become more transparent, and everyone is on the same page of why they're learning. It also surfaced different perspectives and helped to build community consensus as students are playing. What I see a lot when students playing this game, initially, they might confidently play like an AI helps card or AI interfere cards. And then another student will say, are you sure AI can't help here? What about this use cases? So they will come up with use case as they are playing this game and be very creative yet critical at the same time. I often see students change their mind and come out of the game with a more expanded horizon of AI use. So this really helped to surface like not just different use cases, but also different ethics and values. A lot of times students are concerned of the environmental impact that AI is generating, and this huge carbon footprints, as well as some questionable and ethical practices when this AI large language model are being trained. So we see that as students are playing this game, they're also building their AI literacy and they're identifying gaps in their own understanding. So I would like to invite all of you to join us to make this game better. And I would love for you to play test this in your context, in your classroom, and co-design with us and give us feedback. We want to hear from you. So with the collective, I think we can make this game better, more useful for everybody. So if you're interested, we have a fully printable version of this game. So with the guide, with the instructions, as well as all of the cards that's printable, and then you can cut them and use them in your classroom. And so if you like to download a free copy, here is URL as well as a QR code. So you'll be asked to fill out a really quick survey for us to know who you are, what your context is. It's not, we ask you to put in your email, but if you don't want to, that's okay. So we just want to know who are playing these games, as well as this will also allow us to reach you if you would like to engage in kind of co-design or play testing. So again, whether you want to fill out that form is completely optional, but we really appreciate if you do fill out the form, then we can be a collective to advance this together. Once you fill out this form, you'll be directed to a link to download the printable deck. And again, so you can download the deck for free, or if you like to give a small donation to help us build this further and create more resources, you're also welcome to. But we want to make this accessible for everybody. So this is the end of my talk. I think I've left enough time for question, comments, and discussion. Thank you very much for your attention.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lydia. There are definitely lots of engagement and dialogue in the chat, and also some questions queued up. I did see one in the chat from Dan that links closely to what you were just talking about with the game. So he asked, if a class is divided into several small groups, what if they disagree with one another? How does the instructor navigate this for the class as a whole?
Yeah, so I interpret the question in two ways. First is when they are playing, they disagree with one another. Let's say one person think AI helps, other person think AI interferes. So far in our play test, we haven't seen any student not willing to consider other people's perspective when people in a small, especially in a small group setting, they're like, oh, have you considered this? How about this? I see student willing to change their mind. And then they come out with more expanded horizon. And another way I interpret this question is, what about different small groups come up with different kind of AI policies? If one group say, like, we can use AI to do this for our assignment, another student like say it shouldn't. So kind of at a group level, I think one thing I didn't mention in the talk is like actually a lot of the magic happens also after students play. That kind of, you bring student back that whole group discussion to kind of go group by group to ask student what they found. So I think that unpacking is really, really beneficial because you will see convergent, divergent perspectives. Again, there's another chance for community building and building towards consensus. So far, I haven't seen like students unwilling to change their mind. I think if we create a safe and open space for people, I think that's the whole point of the game, is for people to hear one another and have different perspective and navigate that kind of tension together.
Great, thank you for that. There was a couple of questions about the need for policy, so I'll read out Carrie's. She says, I wonder why the need for policy at all, even if it's responsive policy co-constructed with learners in specific learning contexts. It still establishes a rule-based arrangement that requires the instructor to police behaviors and downloads responsibility for appropriate ethical behavior on learners. In your view, are there alternative models for co-constructing engagement with Gen AI that foreground learning process over compliance-based protocols?
Absolutely. I think this is like what you're referring to is exactly why we built this game, is to really foreground the learning process rather than treating teacher or the educator instructor as the police to police students. We want to bring students into this conversation to co-construct this. To be honest with you, I quite I struggle with the word. We call it AI policy right now, but maybe appropriate term is like AI guideline, or initially I called it AI constitution just for fun. So maybe we need a better terminology to describe a kind of policy slash guideline that is actually that has such co-constructed ownership and buy-in that students are regulating themselves while they are using AI, rather than they feel they are just complying to a certain rule. And so I hope this co-construct process, this play process, will enable that sense of ownership. We probably need more research into this, like to actually understand, do students actually have more buy-in and ownership after gameplay? And so that's another thing that's on the horizon. I'd love to do more research to see the effect of such game on students as well.
Great, thank you for that answer. I'm going to jump down to Nicola's question. What about games, conversations about AI and its use in short courses? I am in Con Ed at a polytechnic. Courses are generally 14 hours and anywhere between 3.5 to 21. How can we fit it in there? Instructors are already saying curriculum is jam-packed, and these are adult learners upskilling.
That's a great question. One thing is, in the age of AI, like now there's one more thing to be added curriculum, AI literacy. And I feel that we keep adding things to curriculum, but we never really take anything out, because it's hard to take things out, because this is so important for learners to learn this, whatever skill or content. And I think it's important for people to reevaluate what is important for learners to learn, not saying the things in the curriculum are not important, but to prioritize different learning objectives. Maybe certain content is not needed for a learner to reach the same learning objective. Maybe they're already honing that skill in a different type of assignment or activity. So I think prioritizing learning objectives is really important in the age of AI. I do think, the AI discussion about AI needs to be incorporated in all courses, because students going to use AI anyways. We see the survey results that students are increasingly using AI. I didn't show the longitudinal trend of student AI use is increasing over time. And I think as instructor, we all know students probably are secretively using AI. So if we don't address that, that's going to lead to a lot of fear, a lot of guilt, and a lot of inappropriate use. And we also see this kind of vicious cycle of students thinking their peers are using it, and then they feel disadvantaged if they don't use it. So like they feel penalized as an honest player. So I almost think this discussion around AI is absolutely critical for every course. And you can decide as an instructor how long you want to spend to like kind of talk about AI. The reason I build this game is I know teachers are busy and it's hard for them to think about, oh, how I can approach this conversation. So I just thought this game can be a good starting point to even just open up the conversation for even teacher, instructor, do a temperature check of where students are at. So that's my take.
All right, thank you for that. I have a practical question from Lauren. She said, I just download the game using the QR code. When I try to open the content, it gets stuck on the verifying you are human page. It says to refresh the page if it takes too long, but it still doesn't load. What should I do? Have you had that happen before?
I'm really sorry. Are you stuck on the Google form page, or like when you click on the downloadable link? So if for whatever reason you're unable to download, just feel free to send me an email. I will message that to you as well. So there are always technology glitches. So here is my email address for whatever reason. If you need to reach me, I will just send the copy to you. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks for that.
Sarah, I put this in the chat. Someone was like proposing a better term like social contract. I thought that was really interesting. I think that's a nice way to put it. It's not as like scary and restrictive as policy, but it like at that kind of social contract, I really appreciate that. So thank you so much for that.
Yes, there's been a lot of great side dialogue. Martin asks, excellent presentation. My question, teachers also need this kind of training. How do I adapt the game to develop AI literacy and AI responsible policy?
So the rationale of the game is we want teachers to be able just to use it without initial training because it's really like a dialogue facilitator. So part of my PhD is in education technology on, teacher leading discussions. And so I study a lot about teacher-student dialogue. So that's where the idea come from. I want this deck to just enable like a conversation without prior training. But I also recognize having training and AI literacy for teacher is extremely beneficial. And I've done a number of teacher training on AI, and we see how teacher really shift their perception and feel really empowered afterwards. So I think maybe that as a follow-up to that, we can also build off an AI literacy course that can go hand in hand with the game, but maybe the game can also stand alone for those who don't have time to get into like a long training process.
All right, thank you for that. I'm going to jump over to Esther's question. Are you proposing doing this for each assignment in a course? The time factor in getting students to participate would be a challenge. I could see this helpful for a day one orientation activity to introduce the concept of examining appropriate versus inappropriate uses of AI, but to do for each course for all the assignments would be quite challenging to find the time.
Absolutely. I struggle the same thing in my course. So I did what exactly you described. We did this game on the first class to get students thinking about AI and like inappropriate AI use. I think I have the privilege of teaching my classes on AI's introduction to AI in education. So I have plenty of time to address the ethical implications and etc. And I don't think every course had that luxury. So I think perhaps doing that as the first class as a group might be the best use of your time. Another thing, you can also divide up the group. Maybe one group can focus on assignment 1, maybe another group can focus on assignment 2, and then they can share their perspective. And so other groups do have a chance to have their input. For example, like if the group who is doing assignment 2 said AI shouldn't be used, the whole class do have a chance to say like, oh, maybe we can use AI in this way, and really having like it's almost like a negotiation process for us to build this consensus of what is really good for us as a community.
All right, good. Great for that. We'll do a few more, and then we'll wrap up. All right, I have a question here. Does it really matter how students are using Gen AI when we don't know how faculty are using it or not? We don't know where everyone is at the critical literacy stage. I think all the focus on student is diverting us from what faculty know. This is exactly what happened during COVID.
Yeah, I think, we educators have to empower ourselves with AI literacy. And um, I think that's just much needed. And the students are saying there's not enough AI training for themselves as well as for faculties. And so I think they need to go hand in hand. Yes, the instructor need to be empowered. At the same time, I do think it's important for us, at least in a class level, to understand, at least self-report how students are using AI or claim how AI can be used appropriately or inappropriately, because AI can really hurt student learning. And it does generate these seemingly convincing learning artifacts, whether that's an essay or product or poster, whatever the learning goal is. If we don't have this conversation with students, some student will go to that shortcut, and then that put faculty in a really tricky position to like, do we please or we don't please? Because we are all here for education. We want to see growth in our students. We want students to learn. And the last thing anyone want to do is to please and do that, like follow that rabbit hole of like getting into like investigation, all of that. So I think spending a little bit of time at the beginning of the class to even have a student, even to get your student to think about AI use in a productive manner, and also let your student know that AI is on your radar. And I think this is time for you as instructor to signal to your student that this is open and safe community, that we are all in this together. So students don't feel they are by themselves, they're using in the secret, they have this sense of guilt, fear, and everything that, you know, I've addressed at the beginning of the talk.
Okay, Lydia, I'm going to ask one more question before we wrap up. Kathy has asked or made more of a statement. Memorial University of Newfoundland just had an example of fake AI references used to affect educational policy change. Are you able to comment on that?
Sorry, can you read that again? So
yep. She's saying Memorial University of Newfoundland just had an example of fake AI references used to affect educational policy change. She said, can you please comment?
Well, fake AI citations included in the policy document.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Kathy, are you able to expand on your question? Maybe put it in the chat just to clarify what you're referring to. And while we're waiting for that, I'll see if, oh, Ruth is saying it actually wasn't the university, but the government commissioned the report. Oh, it was the Department of Education.
Okay. And in the report, there's a fake citation.
I believe so, yeah.
I think that just shows like how like uncritical and metacognitive use of AI can lead to a lot of harm. Like these are adults who are behind this. And even for learners, like when they are still, you know, trying to learn and acquire different skills, and when the pressure is high, you know, so, you know, they might default into a shortcut route. So I think like using AI for work and using AI for learning, I try to separate these two conversations because, you know, we know that using AI for work, a lot of time we use AI to increase the efficiency of our work. We already know, for example, how to do certain tasks, but AI is kind of enhancing our efficiency in that way. When we use AI for learning, you know, learning is supposed to be slow. Learning is supposed to be hard. Learning is supposed to challenge you, stretch you a little bit. That's why, you know, when people claim AI is going to make learning so easy, if it's always easy, you're not going to learn anything. And I like to use this metaphor in my talks with students. I say, like, if you play a video game, if it's always at the easy level, you don't really progress. I think like it's important to make that distinction, even like with students, and really thinking about the role that AI playing in whether is in work or whether that's in whether it's in learning. I don't think it's appropriate for me to comment on you know, a mistake that someone has made, but I think it does show that we do need to have a more open and transparent conversation about AI use to avoid such secretive use of AI.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to stop there. I just wanted to thank you, Lydia, for such a thoughtful session. Your ideas and your original game gave us a lot to reflect on as we plan for AI policy in our classroom. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's very innovative. And thank you to all of you for joining us today. Your comments and questions really added to the conversation, and we appreciate the time you took to be here and to engage so actively. Just a quick reminder, the recording and slides will be posted on teachonline.ca, and you'll receive the link by email in about 24 hours. That will come from the Zoom system. So check your junk mail just in case you don't see it in your inbox. If you have any questions or feedback, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to hear from you. And we hope you'll join us again on November 3rd for our next Contact North webinar called What AI is Doing to Student Thinking and What Educators Can Do About It, hosted by Dr. Victoria Livingstone, who is the managing editor of Modern Language Notes at Johns Hopkins University Press, and Jeppe Stryker, who is the head of administration at the Department of Clinical Medicine at Aalborg University in Denmark. So thank you everyone for joining us and have a great rest of your day.